Hello and welcome back. In this section, we're going to focus on our DB class and our model class. This is going to take several videos to get through because I don't want to make the videos too long, and I'm going to try to do my best at explaining as we go. So let's dive in and have some fun here. But first, a disclaimer. I learned this DB class from Alex over at Code Academy, back when he used to be called PHP Academy. And although I've adapted this and changed it a lot, the basis of it came from a tutorial that I took from him a really long time ago. And I thought about trying to rewrite it, and it's worked so well for me that I use this in my own applications. And so I just want to make a full disclaimer that some of this code was written by Alex and taught over on his course. So if you haven't checked him out, he's a great resource for learning PHP and many other things. A very talented individual, so check him out. And I respect him a lot, and he has a lot to do with me getting my first job and internship and where I'm at now. So thank you, Alex, if you ever see this, and keep it up, man. You're a great programmer. Okay, so here we go. What we're going to do is just inside of our core folder here, what I want to do is create a new file, and we'll just call this db.php. I'm just going to leave both of those uppercase because it's only two letters. Most of the time you just uppercase the first one, so we'll just do it like this. So what we're going to do is open our PHP tags, and then go ahead and define our class. So class db. And this is going to be a parent class. It's not going to extend anything or anything like that. And the thing about this class is we're never going to instantiate this class directly. We're going to use what's called a Singleton Pattern. And what we're going to do is check if the class has been instantiated. And if it's been instantiated, the object itself will be stored in a property that we're going to call instance. And it's going to be a static property. If you don't know what a static property is, it's basically a property that is static, meaning it doesn't change, and it's accessible, or it spans all objects that were created with the class. So if we store this, a static variable, for instance, let's just say we had a user's class, and we instantiated 5 user objects, and let's say we had a static counter or a static property in there that told us how many current user objects were instantiated. We could increment every time we instantiate the class and increment that static property, and it would, no matter from which object we called it from, it would still give us the same result back if we echoed that property to the screen or whatever. That data is still the same. So it's shared across all objects that were instantiated with the same class. And so in keeping with that, what we can do is make sure that our application never instantiates more than one DB object. And the way we're going to do that is with a Singleton pattern. So let's just, maybe if I just show it, it'll make more sense than me trying to explain it. So we're going to make this private because we don't want anything or any other classes to be able to mess with this. So we're going to say private static, and since it's private or protected, you usually start with an underscore instance, and we're going to set that by default to be null. Okay, and then what we're going to do is set up a few more private properties here, and we'll do PDO query error, make that equal to false. Do result count, and we'll set that equal to 0. Oops. And then we'll also do last insert ID. I'll make that equal to null. Okay. Now that we have that out of the way, let's go ahead and do our instantiation, our construct here. And what we're going to do is we'll private function we'll use our magic method that PHP gives us. Okay, and what we're going to do in here is we're going to instantiate our new PDO object. Now PDO is an extension of PHP, and most PHP servers have it installed by default, but not all. So let's just go ahead and before we create this connection to the database, let's go ahead and just open up our index file. And right here before our route or something, let's just do PHP info, and that doesn't have an underscore. I don't use this often. Okay, and after that, just say die. And let's just go back to application, hit enter. And when you do that, by the way, you never do this on a live server, but anyhow, if you look here, you can see all sorts of information about your server and about PHP, and you can also find your extensions to that. So I'm just going to search for PDO, and if you search PDO, let's see here. Great. So you can see that PDO is installed, and I have the PDO drivers and MySQL, which is what we're going to use. You could use SQLite, or there are other engines that you can even install too, but just make sure that PDO here, if you have PDO drivers, you're good to go. And so if you don't, you should be using XAMPP like I told you, and you would. So yeah, it's up to you to get that extension installed if you don't have it and you're not using the environment. So I just wanted to make sure before we got too far that we do have PDO installed, and so that's that. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this PHP info in the index file. Close that down. And the way what we're going to do is we're going to do a try-catch block. And what that looks like is we can do a try, and we say catch. Okay, and then do this. And what we're going to is we're going to try to connect or set PDO equal to our connection. If that fails, then we're going to go ahead and kill the application right then. If we can't connect to the database, we'll kill it. And we'll also go ahead and throw an exception. So what we're going to do is say this PDO is equal to new PDO, and we don't have to worry about this auto include or anything like that. This is it knows this is in a global space. It's an extension that we can use. And so what I want to do is kind of show you the parameters here. The first parameter is going to be what engine you're using. So I'm going to use MySQL :host equals, and then you have, after you put your host, you have semicolon, and then you put your DB name equals, and then that's your first parameter, and we'll fill all that information in just a second. And then the next parameter is going to be, we'll just put DB user here, and we'll replace that. But I just kind of want to show you what the parameters are. And then the next one is going to be the DB password. So there are 3 parameters that this gets, and the host, the engine, and the DB name go in the first parameter, which I think is kind of weird, but it doesn't matter what I think because I didn't write it, and the people who wrote it are much smarter than I am. So what we're going to do is pass in, if it catches, if it doesn't work, we're going to catch an exception. So we can do PDO, really help if I spell correctly, exception, and then we'll give that, pass that exception there. And what we do is kill the page, and we're going to go ahead and call a method called getMessage. Okay, and that will kill the page. So let's just really quickly, let's see what happens now if I load my application. This will not work. Shouldn't work. But I'm missing some information here. So let's talk about a few of these. First of all, host. If you're using PDO, what you're going to want to do with host is for most of the time, what you would do is say localhost, or you put some sort of domain here. This is not really what you want to do with PDO because it's going to slow the application down considerably. It'll have a big performance hit on the database connection. So instead, we want to avoid that DNS lookup and do 127.0.0.1. That is, generally speaking, going to be your the host of your local machine. If it's not, then you're going to have to figure that out. And if you're using a live server, you'll need to grab the actual IP address and not the domain of the host. The next thing that you want to go ahead and populate here is going to be the DB name, and I'm just going to call mine Rua. Now you can call yours whatever you want for your project. That is what I'm going to call mine. And then for my user on my machine, it's just root. And then I locally do not have a password, which is not advisable on a live server, but you will have a password on a live server. If you just install XAMPP, it's going to be root. It's going to be 127.0.0.1, and it's going to be not a password set probably out of the gate. And then the DB name is going to be whatever we call it when we create the DB. And so let's then go and open up a new tab, and I'm going to say localhost and then PHP myadmin. This comes installed with XAMPP, and I get a little warning that, hey, I don't have a password, which I told you I didn't, so that's cool. It doesn't matter. And here I'm just going to click new to create a new database, and in this new database I'm going to call it Rua, hit create. And then I have no tables in this, so starting out, let's just do contacts. And I don't know, let's just throw 10 columns at it for a second. Let me kind of do this off the top of my head here, because we're going to use this just as an example while we're building our DB class. So the first column we're going to do is ID. Of course, we're going to make that an auto increment, and we'll give it a primary index. And then what we're going to do is say, how about fname? We'll make that a varchar of 155, or 150 is fine. Lname, again, varchar 150, and then let's say email, varchar, we'll make this 175. Should be sufficient for an email. And then, of course, probably want to have some phones, so we'll just say phone 1. And we'll just make that a varchar again, and we'll just make that 75. I'll probably even do that, say 50. We'll just do a couple phones here, just because we want several phone numbers probably for our contacts. That's probably good. And then let's do street address. I'll just say address, and then that'll be a varchar. We'll put that one at 255, and then we'll do address 2. Again, varchar 255. City. And then let's save this real quick. There's our contacts table, and go back to structure. I'm going to add a few more columns. Let's see, state, zip, state, zip, country. That's probably good for. Oh, we'll do one more for user ID. Okay. So then what we're going to do is so state. We'll do zip code. And we'll say I guess we'll leave country. Sure. And then I'm going to also add a user ID, which we're not going to use till later. We'll leave that as an int, and later we'll come back and add an index, probably foreign key or something to that. Okay, so if we look at our structure now, we have these columns, and our database is called RUA, which I have an extra J on there. So let's see if that breaks our application. Wow, why is that? Oh, well, we're not actually. It's not going to throw an exception yet because we're not actually loading our database. So let's see if we can finish up this real quick, and then we'll move on. I'll go ahead and end the video after we get our connection done, and then we'll move on in the next video. We're going to create another method here, and this method is going to be a public static method, and we're going to call this get instance. Okay, and let's see. This will, what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to make sure we have a singleton pattern. We're going to say, so if not is set self instance. So what it's looking for is, remember this we set up here, this is a static. We're going to look and see if that's set. So if it's null, that means we haven't created an instance yet. So if it's not set, we want to create that instance. So we're going to say self $_instance is equal to new DB. Okay. This is the only time that the object will be instantiated. It will never be instantiated outside of this class in any other part of our application. We're going to access this through get instance. And so what we want to do after that is we're going to return self, you guessed it, instance. Okay, and you got to spell that correctly. So what it's going to do is it's going to look and see if this is null. If it's null, it's going to go ahead and instantiate the object, which will run this construct method, which will create the PDO, and then once the PDO is set up, it's going to set that in here, and then it's going to return, when we call get instance, it's going to return this object, this instance, and it'll have PDO already connection. So we'll have the connection inside of this object, and it'll never be instantiated more than once because we've given this a singleton pattern. So let's go now and just jump back into our index page really quickly, and let's just say db equals, and then what we're going to do is say db, and then it's a static method, so get instance. All right, and let's see what happens here. After that, let's just do our dump and die method and dump and die on db. Okay, and so let's refresh the page here. Okay, so now here we've thrown in an exception, and it says unknown database RUA, and that's because if you look at my database, I accidentally had an extra J on the end there. So what I'm going to try to do here is, and I don't use PHP MyAdmin often anymore. So let's see if I can rename this real quick. Wait a minute. Oh, here it is. Rename database. There we go. Okay. All right. So now, if I go back and refresh the page, okay. So now what you can see is that we've dumped our DB object right here. So we've gotten the instance of the database connection, and we can see that we have an object in there called PDO, and that's perfect. We have these other properties that we set up in the DB class, but they're null and 0 right now, which is totally normal. This is exactly what we wanted, and this is working correctly. The last thing I'm going to say is I don't really want to leave this information here. So what I want to do is open up our config file, and I want to kind of extract away this information so that we can continue to just use our config file to update or to set up our application, and we won't have to go into that core DB file. So underneath our debug, I'm going to go ahead and say define and I'm going to say DB name, and in my case this is going to be Rua. Let's go ahead and add this database name. Alright, and then I'm going to say DB user. For me, that is root. Okay, and then I'll say DB password. For me, that's nothing. And then the last thing that I need here is host. So we'll just say DB host. And for me, that is 127.0.0.1. And we'll say host. And we'll also say use IP address to avoid DNS lookup. Okay, just give us a reminder there. Okay, so now let's utilize these constants in our DB class. So what we're going to do is get rid of host here, and I'm going to go ahead and break out of that string, and we'll concatenate on DB host. Okay, and then here we're going to get rid of DB name, and again, just kind of concatenate on DB name. And then for this parameter, we'll just get rid of that, and we'll say DB user. And here it is DB password. Save that and refresh, make sure we're still connected, and we are. And then what I want to do is, let's get rid of this dump and die here. See if we throw any sort of exception. Okay. So no news is good news. Now if I purposely break this, so if I go to config and I put this at 19 or something, that should let's try to rename that again. That should throw an exception. And what's going on here? DB get instance. It's loading. Looks like it's struggling a little bit here, so it may not. I'm trying to purposely break the application just to show you the exception. Let's see. Yeah, so it's not loading right now. Oh, there we go. So now it does eventually. I need to be more patient, but it does eventually throw that exception that the database doesn't exist. And so let's go back to the config file, get rid of that S, go back here and refresh, and we are loaded and everything is good to go. So if you gotten to that point, congratulations, we have created instantiated a new PDO object, and we have connected to our database, and now we have that connection that we can use. In the next video, we're going to get heavy into creating our methods for our DB wrapper and to make PDO super easy to work with, even easier than it already is. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video.